Chapter 7. The Secret War with Vedic Rus. The war with Vedic Rus began long before Jesus' appearance on the earth, long before the fall of Rome. This 1,000-year war was not waged with iron swords. Occultism executed its military raids on a non-material plane. Preachers of the occult religion came to Russia. Dozens of their names are mentioned in various ecclesiastical books, but they actually numbered in tens of thousands. They were not to blame for their ignorance. They were fanatics, which means their mind was unable to fathom even the millionth part of creation. As foot soldiers to the priest, reverently carrying out his orders without so much as a murmur, they attempted to explain to people how to live. They tended to say exactly the same things they had said when preaching to once majestic imperial Rome. They tried introducing ritual and proposed the construction of temples instead of paying attention to nature or earthly existence. Then the kingdom of heaven would come for everyone. I shall not burden you by reciting their sermons. If you wish, you can still read their words today. I shall tell you why. For thousands of years, they did not succeed in doing anything with Vedic Rus. Every other person living in Rus at that time was a poet and a wit, and there were bards in Rus. They were called bayans back then. Footnote, pronounced bayan. See footnote 4 in Book 4, Chapter 33. This is how it all took place in those times. For decades, the priests' foot soldiers waged a propaganda campaign to the effect that God had to be bowed down to. And here and there, people began to listen and reflect on the message. Upon seeing this, the bayan would simply laugh and make up a parable, which he would then sing. And the parable would spread quickly throughout Rus. And over the next 10 years or so, Rus would have a good laugh at the priest's sermons. The priest was furious and launched new attacks. But once again, in Rus, a parable would be born, and Rus would laugh once more. Of all the many parables of those times, I shall tell you just 3. In which temple should God dwell? Anastasia's first parable. In one of the many populated settlements on the earth, people went happily about their daily life. In this particular community lived 99 families. Each family lived in a splendid house, decorated with fanciful wood carvings. The garden around the house brought forth fruit every year in abundance. Vegetables and berries grew all by themselves. Every year, people met the spring with joyful greeting and delighted in the summer. A series of cheerful friendship celebrations brought forth songs and khorovods. In the wintertime, people rested from their daily exhilarations, and they looked up to the heavens and tried to decide whether they might be able to weave the moon and the stars into even better patterns. Once every 3 years in July, those people gathered in a glade at the edge of their community. Once in every 3 years, God would respond to their questions and in an ordinary voice. Even though he remained invisible to ordinary eyes, each one could feel him, and he, together with all the residents of the community, decided how best to build their life in the days to come. The people's conversation with God might be philosophical, but sometimes it was quite simple and even funny. So, for example, one middle-aged man stood up and addressed God in this way. Come on now, God. For our celebration this summer, when we all gathered together with the dawn, you decided to drench us all with a monsoon? The rain poured down like a waterfall from heaven, and the sun began to shine only around noon. What, did you sleep in till noon? I was not asleep, God replied. At this morning's dawn, I thought about how to make your celebration truly glorified. I saw how some of you on their way to the celebration, were too lazy to wash themselves with clean water. How so? Such reprobates would spoil the show with their appearance, and so I decided first to wash everyone, and then have the clouds sweep in and allow the rays of the sun to caress the water-washed bodies with tenderness. Well, okay, if that is how, the man agreed, brushing off the food crumbs from his mustache and wiping the blackberry stains from his son's mouth. Tell me, God, asked an elderly and pensive philosopher. There are many stars shining in the sky overhead. What does their fanciful alignment mean? If I should select a star that is pleasing to my soul, and then when I get bored with my earthly life, can I move there with my family? The alignment of the heavenly bodies twinkling in the dark tells about the life of the whole universe. An alertness in your soul, but without tension, allows you to read the book of the heavens. This book will not open for idleness or curiosity, but for pure and meaningful thoughts. And yes, you can settle on a star. Each of you can choose for yourself a planet in the heavens. There is only one condition that you must observe. You must become capable of producing on your selected star creations more perfected than those produced on the earth. A very young girl jumped up from the ground and tossed her light brown braid of hair over her shoulder. Raising her little face with its upturned nose heavenward, she placed her hands saucily on her hips and suddenly declared to God, I have a complaint to make you, God. For 2 years now I've waited patiently to tell you about it. Now I shall tell you. Some kind of disorder or abnormality is taking place on earth. All the people are living as people, falling in love, marrying, and being happy. But am I to blame for something? Every year, just as soon as spring arrives, my cheeks break out into freckles. There is nothing that will wash them off, and I can't paint over them. Do you think this up as some kind of a joke, God? I demand that, as of next spring, not a single freckle ever appear on my face again. Oh, my daughter, those are not freckles, but spring speckles that appear on your beautiful little face each spring. But I shall call them as you wish. If you find your freckles to be such an annoyance, I shall remove them come next spring. God answered the spunky girl. Then a handsome young lad got up at the other end of the glade and meekly addressed God, though not in a loud voice. We have a lot of work ahead of us in the springtime. You, God, try to take part in everything that we do. Why would you waste your time on removing her freckles? Besides, they are so beautiful that I cannot picture a more beautiful image than a young maiden with freckles in the spring. So what am I to do? God thoughtfully responded. The maiden asked, and I promised her. What's this about what to do? The girl once more broke into the conversation. You heard the people say it's not freckles, but other more important things that we should be concerned about. But while we're on the subject of speckles, I'd like to ask for 2 more. Right here, on my right cheek, so that it's symmetrical. God smiled. This was evident from the fact that all the people were smiling. Everybody knew that it would not be long before a new splendid family would be lovingly born into their community. So the people lived with God in that remarkable community, and then one day, 100 wise men came to see them. The hospitable residents always greeted guests with all kinds of good things to eat. The wise men tasted their splendid fruit and were amazed at its extraordinary flavor. Then one of them said, "O people, what a splendid, orderly life you lead. You have abundance and coziness in every home. But your communication with God lacks sophistication. There is no glorification or adulation of deity." But why? The residents tried to protest in alarm. We talk with God the way we talk with each other. We talk and we reason with him every 3 years. But every day he rises with the sun. As a bee, he busies himself around the gardens beginning in every spring. Every winter he covers the ground with snow. His tasks are clear to us, and we are glad for all the seasons. You are doing things the wrong way, said the wise men. We have come to teach you how to talk with God. All over the earth an array of temples and palaces have been built in his honor, where people can talk with God every day, and we shall teach you to do the same. For 3 years the residents of the settlement heeded the words of the wise men. Each of the 100 insisted on his own theory about how to best construct a temple to God, and what should be done in the temple each day. Each of the wise men had his own theory. The residents of the community had no idea which of these 100 wise theories they should choose. Besides, how could they choose without offending the wise men? So they decided to heed them all and build all the temples as proposed, one for each family. But there were only 99 families in the village, and there were 100 wise men. When they heard the decision of all the residents, the wise men became very concerned. It meant that one of them would not get his temple built. It would not receive the anticipated offerings. And they began arguing among themselves as to whose theory of worshiping God was the most effective, and they began dragging the residents into the dispute. The dispute heated up, and for the first time in many years the villagers forgot about their time of communication with God. They did not gather as before in the glade on the appointed day. Another 3 years went by. 99 magnificent temples were scattered about the settlement, and it was only the villagers' hut that had lost their luster. Some of the vegetables lay uncollected on the ground, and the fruit of their gardens became infested with worms. This is because, the wise men preached in the various temples, you do not have full faith. Bring more and more gifts to the temple, and try harder, and bow down to God more often. But there was one wise man, the one who had been left without a temple, who whispered first to one and then to another, You have been going about everything the wrong way, people. All the temples you have built are of the wrong construction, and you do not worship the right way in your temples, and you are not saying the right words as you pray. I am the only one who can teach you how to communicate with God every day. Just as soon as he managed to bring someone over to his side, a new temple would be erected, and one of the existing ones would fall into disrepair, and again one of the wise men, the one newly deprived of people's offerings, tried to why do I stumble over this word? Oh my God. Fuck it. Tried to slander the others in front of the villagers. A number of years passed. Then one day the people remembered about the gatherings they used to have in the glade where they heard God's voice. Once again they gathered in the glade and began asking questions in the hope that God would hear them and answer as before. Answer us, how did it happen that our gardens are bringing forth worm-infested fruit? And why do our vegetables no longer yield an abundant harvest every year? And why do people quarrel and fight and argue amongst themselves, but cannot possibly choose the best faith? Tell us in which of the temples we built for you. Tell us in which of the temples we built for you do you dwell? For a long time, God did not answer their questions, and when a voice finally sounded in space, it was not a happy voice. It sounded weary. God answered those gathered. My sons and daughters, the reason for the desolation in your houses and the gardens around them is that I am simply not able to do everything by myself. Everything has been designed by my dream right from the start in such a way that I can create splendor only in conjunction with you. But you have, in part, turned away from your homes with their gardens. Creation is something I cannot manage on my own. There must be co-creation by the two of us together. Moreover, I want to say to you all, you yourselves include love and freedom of choice, but I am ready to follow your aspirations with my dream. But you must tell me, my dear daughters and sons, in which of the temples I am to dwell. Before me, All of you, before me, you are all equal of worth. So whereabouts should I reside so that nobody feels left out? When you have decided on your own in which of the temples I should make my home, I shall be glad to follow your collective will." After responding to all with these words, God fell silent. The people of the once beautiful village are continuing their conflict even to this day. Their houses are filled with desolation and dust. Around them, the temples rise higher and higher, even as the conflict grows bitterer and bitterer. Well, Anastasia, that is quite an unrealistic fairy tale parable that you told. There must have been some pretty dumb people in that settlement. Didn't they realize that God wants to work with each of them to care for their garden? Besides, you even said that those dullards in the settlement are still arguing, even today. Where is that settlement, and in what country? Can you tell me? I can. Then tell me. Vladimir, you, along with people from different lands, are living in this very settlement right now. Oh, I see. Precisely. We are the ones. We are engaged in a dispute about whose faith is better, while our gardens are full of worm-infested fruit. The best place in paradise. The second parable. 4 brothers came to a gravesite to honor the memory of their father, who had died many years before. The brothers wanted to know whether his soul was dwelling in paradise or in hell. They were all eager for their father's spirit to appear before them and tell how it was doing in the next world. Their father's image appeared before them in a wondrous radiance. The brothers were awed, and their hearts were afire when they saw this miraculous vision. When they finally regained their composure, they inquired, "Tell us, Father, does your soul dwell in paradise?" "Yes, my sons," their father replied. "My soul delights in a wondrous paradise." "Tell us, Father," the brothers started asking, "what fate awaits our souls after our own flesh dies?" And the father responded to each of his sons in turn with a question of his own. "Tell me, my sons, how do you appraise your deeds to date upon the earth?" And each brother answered his father in turn. The eldest son began. "I have become a great military leader, Father. I have defended my native land against its foes and never allowed an enemy to tread upon it. I have never offended the poor and infirm. I have endeavored to take good care of the soldiers under my command. I have always honored God, and therefore I hope to enter paradise." The second son replied to his father, "I have become a prominent preacher. I have preached goodness to the people. I have taught them to worship God. I have reached great heights and achieved high standing among my peers. Therefore I hope to enter paradise." The third son replied to his father, "I have become a prominent scientist. I have designed a great many devices to benefit people's lives. I have raised a large number of handsome buildings for mankind. Each time I start a new construction project, I give praise to God and celebrate and honor his name. Therefore I hope to enter into paradise." The youngest brother answered for his father, "I, Father, cultivate a garden and work daily at raising vegetables. From my splendid garden I send fruits and vegetables to my brothers and try not to do anything dishonorable or displeasing to God. Therefore I hope to enter into paradise." The father replied to his sons, "Your souls, my sons, will indeed dwell in paradise after your flesh dies." The vision of their father faded. Years went by, the brothers died, and their souls met in the garden of paradise. Only the soul of their younger brother was not among them. The 3 brothers then began to call out to their father, and when he once again appeared before them in his wondrous radiance, they asked him, "Tell us, Father, why is the soul of our little brother not among us in the garden of paradise? It has been 100 earthly years since we last spoke with you at your gravesite." "Do not be concerned, my sons," replied the father. "Your little brother's soul, too, is dwelling in the Garden of Paradise, only he is not with you right now because your little brother is at this moment communicating with God." Another 100 years went by, and once again the brothers met in the Garden of Paradise, but again their younger brother was not with them. And again the brothers called for their father. When he appeared, they asked, "See, another 100 years has gone by, and our little brother still has not come to meet us, nor has anyone seen him in the Garden of Paradise. Tell us, Father, where is our little brother now?" And the father answered his 3 sons, "Your little brother is communicating with God, and that is why he is not among you." And the 3 brothers began asking their father to show them where and how their youngest brother was communicating with God. "Take a look," the father replied. And the brothers saw the earth, and there was the marvelous garden which their little brother had cultivated during his lifetime. In this wondrous earthly garden, their brother, looking so much younger, was explaining something to his child. His beautiful wife was busying herself nearby. The brothers asked their father in astonishment, "There's our little brother in his earthly garden as before, not in the Garden of Paradise as we are. What is he to blame for before God? Why has his flesh not died? Several centuries have passed in earth years, yet here we see him as a young man? Does that mean God has somehow changed the order of the universe?" And the father answered his 3 sons, "God has not changed the order of the universe, which he established right from the start in great harmony and inspired love. Your brother's flesh has died, and on more than one occasion, but the place of one's soul in the Garden of Paradise is best created by one's own hands and soul. Just as for any loving mother and father, the child of their own creation is always the most glorious. According to the divine order of things, the soul of your little brother should assuredly be granted entrance into the Garden of Paradise, but seeing that this garden is on earth, it is immediately incorporated into a new body in an earthly garden so dear to it." "Tell us, Father," the brothers went on, "you were saying that our little brother is communicating with God, but we don't see God with him in his garden." And the father responded to his 3 sons, "Your little brother, my sons, is looking at God's creations, the trees, the tall grass. They are the Creator's own materialized thoughts, and treating them with love and conscious awareness, your brother is thereby communicating with God." "Tell us, Father, shall we ever return to the earth in fleshly form?" their sons asked. And they heard him answer, Your souls, my sons, now dwell in the Garden of Paradise. They can take on earthly form only if someone creates a garden for your souls on the earth, similar to the one in Paradise." The brothers exclaimed, "Gardens aren't created with love for other people's souls. We ourselves, once we're given a fleshly form, shall cultivate a garden of paradise on the earth." But the father replied to his sons, "You were given that opportunity already, my sons." After this response, the father began to quietly withdraw. But once again, the 3 brothers cried out and asked their father, "Dear Father, show us your place in the Garden of Paradise. Why do you withdraw yourself from us?" The father stopped and replied to his 3 sons, "Look there. Do you see that leafy apple? That leafy apple tree flowering beside your little brother in his garden? Under that apple tree is a little cradle, and in that cradle is the beautiful body of a tiny infant that has just wiggled its little hand, and as it begins to awake. My soul is alive in that little body. After all, that was the marvelous garden I began creating myself." The wealthiest groom. A 3rd parable. I shall make a few changes in this parable to put it in modern-day context. In one village lived 2 neighborhoods. The families were friends with each other and enjoyed working their land. Every spring, gardens bloomed on the 2 plots, and their little groves of trees grew taller. Into each family a son was born. After their sons had matured, one day while gathering around a festive table, the fathers took a firm decision and handed everything over to their sons' control. "Let those sons of ours now decide what to sow and when," one of them said to the other. "You and I, my friend, shall not oppose them, or even give them hints or questioning looks." "Agreed," replied the other. "Let our sons even make changes around the house if they wish. Let them choose the clothing they like. Let them decide what livestock and other things to buy." "Fine," replied the first. "Let our sons become self-sufficient, and let them choose worthy brides for themselves. We shall go together, my friend, to seek brides for our sons." And this is the decision that emerged from the two friends and the neighbors' conversation. Their idea was supported by their wives, and the families began living under their grown-up sons' administration. But thereafter, the two families lived significantly diverged. In one family, the son became an active member of the community and paid his respects to everybody, which led to his being defined as the first citizen of the village. The other son seemed to be slow and serious of mind to all around. He came to be called the village's second citizen. The first neighbor's son felled and sawed up the trees of the grove his father had planted and hauled them to the market. He bought himself a family car in place of his horse, along with a small tractor. The first son here was considered very enterprising. The new entrepreneur calculated the coming year would see a sharp increase in the price of garlic, and he was not mistaken. He pulled up all his plantings and sowed his fields with garlic. His father and mother did their best to help him in everything. They had made a promise, and it was not forsaken. The family sold the garlic at a profit. They set about building a huge mansion using the most modern materials invented and hired construction workers. The enterprising son did not relent. He spent from morning till night trying to figure out what the most profitable crop would be to plant in the spring. And by winter's end, he had calculated that this spring's most profitable crop would be onions, and again he sold his harvest at a profit and bought himself a fancy new car. One day the two neighbors' sons met along the road. One was driving a car, and the other a wagon harnessed to a frisky mare. The successful entrepreneur stopped his car, and the two neighbors had a conversation. "See, neighbor, I'm driving a fancy new car, or you're getting around in a horse-drawn cart, just as you were before. I'm building a big house, while you're still living in that old house of your father's. Our fathers and mothers have always been friends, and I am too ready to help you in a neighborly way. If you like, I can tell you what the most profitable crop to plant your whole field with today." "Thank you for your willingness to help," responded the second neighbor from his wagon. "Only I happen to cherish a great deal my freedom of thought. Indeed I do." "Well, I certainly don't want to encroach on your freedom of thought. It's just that I sincerely wanted to help you through." "I thank you for your sincerity. You are a good neighbor. But freedom of thought is eroded by non-living things. That car, for example, you are sitting in." "How can a car erode? It can easily overtake that old farm cart of yours, and by the time you get to the city, I'll be able to have my business all taken care of, and all thanks to my motor car." "Yes, your car, of course, can certainly overtake my wagon, but it requires you to sit behind the wheel and to hold it constantly as you drive, while you as the driver have to keep jerking some kind of stick with your hand and continually looking at the dashboard and the road. Maybe my horse is slower than a car, but it doesn't require any attention, doesn't distract my thought either. If I should take a snooze, the horse will find its own way home. You say you have problems with fuel, whereas my horse fills up with the pasture over there. Anyway, tell me, where are you in such a hurry to get to in your car?" "I wanted to buy some spare parts to keep on hand. I know exactly what could go wrong with my car at any given moment." "Oh, so you know about the technology that you can accurately predict all your breakdowns?" "Yeah, I'm pretty good at that. I took a special mechanics course For 3 years in all, I swatted through. If you recall, I asked you to join me in those courses too. So for 3 years of your life, you had only this technology to give your thought to, something that can get old and break down. Well, your horse too will get old and die. Yes, of course she will get old. But before that happens, she will be able to give birth to a foal. The foal will grow, and I shall be able to ride him. What is living will eternally serve man, never fear, while what is dead only shortens his years. You know, the whole village makes fun of you and your ideas, remarked the entrepreneur. They think of me as successful and wealthy, while they see you just sit and live off of your father's fortune. Besides, you haven't introduced any new species of trees or bushes on your father's land, not even a bit. But I have come to love these. I've been trying to understand each one's purpose and how they interact with each other. I've been able to invigorate the ones starting to wither just by looking at and touching them. Now come each spring, everything is blossoming in harmony all by itself, requiring no outside attention. It's just waiting eagerly for summer, and then for fall, when it will offer up its fruit for the year. Really, friend, I must say you are quite queer, sighed the entrepreneur. You walk around entranced with your domain, your garden, and your flowers, and at the same time you say you are giving freedom to your thoughts. Yes, I am. What do you need a free thought for, anyway? What's the point in freedom of thought? So that I can make sense of all the grand creations, so that I can be happier myself and help you. Me? What has got a hold of you? I can marry the best girl in the village. Any one of them will go for me. They all want to be rich and live in a spacious house and ride in my car. Being rich doesn't mean being happy. And being poor? Being poor isn't so good either. So if you're not poor and you're not rich, then what? You ought to have just enough of everything. Being self-sufficient, that's not bad either. And be consciously aware of what's going on around. After all, it's not by chance that happiness can be found. The entrepreneur grinned and quickly went on his way. A year later, the two neighboring fathers got together for a talk. They decided it was time to be courting brides for their sons. When they asked them which of the village girls they would like to wed, the entrepreneuring son replied to his father, "The daughter of the village elder really appeals to me, father. I would rejoice to have her as my wife." "I can see, my son, that you have made an excellent choice. The village's elder daughter is renowned as the most beautiful girl in the entire county. All the visitors to our village from both near and far are entranced at the sight of her. Mind you, she can be quite capricious. The girl has a mind of her own that even her parents can't figure out. Some people might think her strange. More and more women keep coming to her from various settlements for advice and to be healed of their ills. They even bring their children to see this young girl." "What of it, father? I'm made of sterner stuff. In all our village there is no more spacious house or better car than mine. Besides, twice now, I have seen her give me a long and thoughtful look." On being asked which of the village girls he most fancied, the second son told his father, "I love the village elder's daughter, father." "And how does she act toward you, my son? Have you noticed a look of love in her eyes?" "No, father. Whenever I happen to meet her, she lowers her eyes." Both neighbors simultaneously decided to woo the maiden for their sons. Arriving at their house, they seated themselves sedately. The village elder summoned his daughter and told her, "Look, my daughter, 2 matchmakers have come to see us, on behalf of 2 young lads, each wishing to have you as a wife. The 3 of us have decided that you should choose from the 2. Can you tell us your decision now, or would you like to think about it until tomorrow morning?" "I've spent many mornings thinking about it in my dreams, father," the young girl said quietly. "I can give you my answer right now." All right, so tell us. We're eagerly waiting your decision. The beautiful girl answered the matchmakers like this. Thank you, fathers. Thank you all for inquiring. I thank your sons for desiring to join their life with mine. You have indeed raised splendid sons, and it might have been very difficult to choose to which of the two destinies I should myself resign. I do want to have children, and I want my children to be happy, to stand tall in prosperity, freedom, and love. And so I have fallen in love with the one who is wealthiest of all. The father of the entrepreneur rose to his feet in pride, while the other father sat glumly in his chair. But the girl went over to the second father, knelt down before him, and, without raising her eyelids, said, I wish to live with your son. At this point, the village elder rose to his feet. He wanted to see his daughter living in what was deemed by all the richest house in all the village. And so he said to her rather harshly, You spoke correctly, daughter. Your smart reasoning brought gladness to your father's heart. But you, for your part, did not go and kneel before the richest man in the village. Someone else here is the wealthiest. This is he. The elder, gesturing to the entrepreneur's father, added, Their son has built a spacious home, honey. They have a car and a tractor and money. The girl went over to her father and responded to his harsh and bewildering words. Of course, you are right, Papa dear, but I was talking about children. What use will our children have for those things you mentioned? A tractor can break down while they're still growing up. The car may rust, and the house may fall into decay. That may be. Maybe what you say is true, granted, but your children will have a great deal of money, and they can buy for themselves a new tractor, and new car, and a new clothes, a new house. How much is a great deal, might I ask? The entrepreneur's father proudly stroked his beard and mustache, and answered solemnly and seriously, My son has heaps of money. Enough so that if he needed to buy 3 of everything of our household already has, he could do so all at once. And those horses our neighbors keep, we would be able to buy not just 2, but a whole stable full. The girl meekly lowered her eyelids and responded, I wish you and your son great happiness, but there is no amount of money on the earth that would buy a father's garden, where every branch reaches out in sheer love to the one cultivating it. And no money in the world can buy the loyalty of a steed that has played with a child as a colt. Your domain may indeed make money, but my beloved's domain will make a space for sufficiency and love.